Figure 1, the horse. This is a story about a horse. A horse whose fate was inextricably tied to the invention of film. And it all started with an innocent question. Do all 4 of a horse's hooves leave the ground at any point during a gallop? Leland Stanford, yes, the dignified chap who founded Stanford University, thought they did.
All 4 of a horse's hooves leave the ground while galloping.
But some other academics thought they didn't.
1 foot is most certainly always touching the ground.
So to put the matter to rest, Stanford hired a professional photographer, Edward Muybridge, to capture the truth on film. There was a bet. Thousands of dollars were at stake, as well as a man's reputation. But wait, cameras at the time could not capture things moving quickly. There was no such thing as a movie camera in 1878. So Muybridge had to get creative. He devised an ingenious solution: 12 wired triggers and 12 shutters for 12 cameras, all evenly spaced, to capture a horse and carriage on a racetrack. The carriage was driven across the tripwires, setting off all 12 cameras in less than half a second, capturing the truth.
You can clearly see all 4 hooves have left the ground.
Leland Stanford was right, but honestly, we don't really care about the horse. What we do care about, however, is Muybridge's newfangled contraption used to photograph things in motion. See what I'm getting at here? Thomas Edison and the Lumiere brothers certainly did. They took Muybridge's invention and changed the course of media as we know it, creating the motion picture. As for the academics who lost the bet, they're fine. They had tenure. Ferrari, Lamborghini, simply the ultimate in vehicular luxury, right? Well, in Italy, Lamborghini started out associated with tractors. So how did Lamborghini evolve from tilling the fields of Bologna to becoming one of the top luxury brands on the planet? Through a personal insult delivered by this man, Mr. Ferrari himself.
Il cliente non ha sempre ragione.
Ferruccio Lamborghini was a real man with real skills. As an Italian Air Force mechanic during World War II, he set up a little auto repair shop in northern Italy, buying surplus military machines and converting them into tractors. He made a lot of money.
Ho guadagnato molte soldi.
So much money that he could finally afford a Ferrari 250 GT, a true sign that he had made it. But there was a problem. So he took a trip to visit Enzo Ferrari himself to complain. Ferrari, notorious for writing off his customers, threw shade at the tycoon tractor maker, exclaiming, "The problem is not with the car, but with the driver. Go focus on your tractors." Game on. Lamborghini was furious about Ferrari's fiery affront and decided to build his own car, just to spite him. Lamborghini poached a few of Ferrari's ex-employees and told them to get to work on beating their former boss at his own game. The team succeeded, with the result being the Lamborghini 350 GT, and the rest is history.
E il resto è storia.
I already said that.
It's November 6th, 1814. In the Belgian city of Dinant, in a modest house built on a street that would later bear his name, Adolphe Sax was born. 28 years later, while living in Paris, Sax would invent the saxophone and revolutionize music in ways he couldn't imagine. But this isn't that story. This is the story of how Adolphe Sax escaped death 7 times before inventing the saxophone. Hardly old enough to stand, the young Adolf fell down 3 flights of stairs. The stone floor broke his fall. At the age of 3, Adolf swallowed a bowl of watered-down sulfuric acid, mistaking it for milk. Years later, Adolf found himself a bit too close to a gunpowder explosion. He was again burned when a cast-iron frying pan was knocked over onto him. Later, a roof stone fell on his head, leaving a lifelong scar. Adolf once nearly asphyxiated when recently varnished items were left in his bedroom overnight. He woke up, barely. Playing with friends in a nearby river, Adolf was swept up in a swift current and nearly drowned. Again, he survived. On February 7th, 1894, Adolf died peacefully in Paris. The saxophone had already crossed the Atlantic, primed to evolve into an icon of American jazz music and guaranteeing sax his immortality. Listen. This sound is the first evidence of the Big Bang. And this is a story of 2 radio astronomers who discovered proof of the beginning of everything. This is the horn reflector antenna at Bell Laboratories. Robert, can you tell us what this thing does?
It receives radio waves coming from the direction it's pointed to and funnels them into a receiver.
That's Robert Wilson, radio astronomer. In the early 60s, he and his colleague Arno Penzias were tasked with measuring the brightness of the sky using the horn reflector antenna. But no matter where they pointed it, the antenna read a much larger signal than the pair expected.
Our immediate reaction was that there must be something wrong with our system.
They thought it might be interference from the horn itself, or New York City, or even some pigeons living in the horn.
We thought about a collection of ordinary sources that are in the very distance. That just didn't seem to be possible.
So they reached out to a group of researchers at Princeton University led by astrophysicist Robert Dicke, who had been scouring the sky unsuccessfully for evidence of the Big Bang. Arno called and...
Dicke picked up the phone, and they started hearing things like atmospheric radiation, sky brightness, all the things that they were working on. Dicke put the phone down and said, "Boys, we've been scooped."
Robert and Arno had measured what Dicke and his team were searching for, the elusive cosmic microwave background radiation.
He thought about a Big Bang source of the universe, realized that it would be very hot and therefore full of radiation. And as the universe expanded, that radiation would simply cool. And whereas it was extremely hot to start with, by now it would simply be microwaves. Now it's so cold that it would just be radio waves.
And this, not pigeons or the noisy city, was exactly what had been causing headaches for Robert Wilson and Arno Penzias. The 2 groups of researchers from Bell Labs and Princeton each wrote complementary research papers with their findings.
They wrote one about the theory, we wrote one about our measurement, and we published them. I think unlike many changes that occur in science, there really was a paradigm shift with very little pushback.
It was huge. There was now evidence of a new theory for the beginning of the entire universe. Over a decade later, Robert Wilson and Arno Penzias were awarded the 1978 Nobel Prize in Physics. How'd that feel, Robert?
Felt pretty strange to win the Nobel Prize. I didn't feel comfortable being on the same list with Einstein.
But despite Robert's humility, there's no doubt of the significance of the discovery.
It gives us our earliest picture of the universe from which we can extrapolate back to very early times. It's one of the centerpieces of cosmology.
You know this guy, William Shakespeare. He's widely regarded as the greatest writer in the English language. And here's Steve with his Harris Hawk Margot. Hi, Steve. What do they both have in common? Let me explain. So, what is falconry?
Falconry is defined as the art of using a trained bird of prey flying at quarry. It's catching your dinner using a bird of prey.
It's been around for thousands of years, and it was so popular back in the 16th century that Shakespeare started using it in his literature. He was such a prolific falconer that everyone started using his phrases. So much so, these expressions are ingrained in the English language today. like fed up.
When Margot's been out hunting, what happens is she will eat until she gets to a point where literally she's fed up to here, she's full. She doesn't want to do anything, so she sits still, looks miserable, and therefore we say to people, like the kids, look at you sitting there looking fed up. All birds for thousands of years have always worn these two little jesses, these leather straps attached to each leg, and when we hold on to her, we put them under the thumb and through the fingers. Therefore we have restraint, therefore we can hold him back, just like an errant husband. What you've got to bear in mind is that if something's been around for so long, then it's bound to have an impact on the vernacular. The falcon generally wears a hood because he's very highly strung, very nervous, and the hood is a calming down device. And what we do is when we put the hood on him, we're actually fooling him into thinking it's gone dark. So you've tricked him, i.e. hoodwinked him, using a hood to think it's night time so he relaxes. As well as holding these leather straps, the jesses, the leash fastens onto the glove, and then we wrap it around the finger as like a belt and braces. It's an extra precaution in case we lose the bird. Haggard comes from an old bird that is learnt to hunt. You trap her once she's learnt to hunt, therefore she's a better hunter because she's learnt on her own, which is where we get the word an old hag from now. And how many people have used that every day and don't realise it's actually a falconry expression?
So there we have it. Thanks, Shakespeare.